A golden retriever dog was abandoned at a shelter. Months later, the unthinkable happened. Shelters see heartbreak every day. Some dogs arrive lost, others abandoned. But few come through the doors already carrying the weight of their own past. When Patch, an enormous golden retriever, was surrendered just before closing time, shelter worker Clara Matthews knew something was different about him. His golden fur was thick with rolls of weight he could barely carry, his breathing labored, his eyes filled with quiet confusion. A lifetime of love had been exchanged for a hasty goodbye, and now he stood in a strange place, waiting for someone who would never return. But what no one knew then, what no one could have predicted, was that Patch's story was far from over. Because the moment his story was shared, something incredible happened. A flood of strangers, each touched by his gentle eyes and tragic past, rallied behind him. One woman, in particular, saw something in Patch that others had overlooked. Not just a dog in need, but a soul waiting for a second chance. What followed was a journey of transformation, resilience, and a heartwarming turn of fate that no one expected. This is the story of how an abandoned dog found not just a new home, but a new purpose, and in doing so, changed more lives than just his own. The autumn wind rustled through the dying leaves outside Richmond Animal Care Center, carrying with it the musty scent of approaching rain. Clara Matthews adjusted her name badge and glanced at the wall clock. Just 15 minutes until closing time. After 12 years as a shelter coordinator, she thought she'd seen everything. She was wrong. The glass doors swung open, letting in a gust of cold air and the labored breathing of what Clara first mistook for a small bear. A woman in her mid-50s, dressed in an expensive wool coat, struggled to guide an enormous golden retriever through the entrance. The dog's chest heaved with each step, his belly nearly touching the ground. His golden coat, though clean, hung in thick rolls around his frame. "Can I help you?" Clara asked, already moving from behind the reception desk. The dog's eyes, partial hidden beneath folds of facial fat, met hers with a gentle, almost apologetic expression. "This is Patch," the woman said, her voice wavering. "He belonged to my daughter, but she's moving to New York and can't take him." She fumbled with a leather handbag, producing a stack of veterinary records. "He's 6 years old, up to date on shots. I'd keep him myself, but my building doesn't allow pets." Clara knelt beside Patch, running her hands through his thick fur. Despite his obvious obesity, his tail wagged slowly, thumping against the linoleum floor. "How long has your daughter had him?" "Since he was 8 weeks old." The woman's eyes darted toward the door. "Listen, I have an appointment. Can you take him or not?" Something in Clara's chest tightened. After years in animal welfare, she recognized the signs of someone who'd already emotionally disconnected from their pet. "Ma'am, we're a municipal shelter. We can take him, but you should know." "Perfect." The woman thrust the paperwork into Clara's hands. "His food and favorite toy are in this bag." She set down a canvas tote and turned toward the door, heels clicking against the floor. "Wait," Clara called after her. "We need you to fill out some forms." But the woman was already gone, leaving only the lingering scent of expensive perfume and the sound of Patch's labored breathing. Clara looked down at the gentle giant beside her. "Oh, sweetie," she whispered. "What did they do to you?" The initial medical examination revealed the brutal truth. Patch weighed 127 pounds, nearly 50 pounds over the healthy weight for a male golden retriever. His joints showed early signs of deterioration, and his heart was stressed from supporting his massive frame. But beyond the physical issues, it was the emotional trauma that broke Clara's heart. That first night, Patch refused to lie down in his kennel. He stood, panting, watching the door with unwavering attention. Every time footsteps approached, his tail would wag hopefully, only to drop when the person passed by. It wasn't until Clara brought in a blanket that smelled like his former home that he finally settled, resting his head on the familiar fabric with a deep sigh. "This isn't the end of your story," Clara promised him, sliding a few pieces of kibble through the kennel bars. "We're going to find you someone special." That night, unable to sleep, Clara logged into the shelter's social media accounts. She began typing Patch's story, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she poured out her anger and hope in equal measure. "Today, we met a gentle soul named Patch. 6 years of unconditional love, and he was discarded like yesterday's newspaper because his owner's lifestyle changed. He's morbidly obese because somewhere along the way, someone confused food with love. But we see you, Patch. We see your beautiful heart, your forgiving nature, and your capacity for joy. We're going to help you find your way back to health, and then we're going to find you a family who understands that pets aren't accessories, they're lifetime commitments." She attached photos: Patch's soulful eyes, his struggle to walk, his gentle interaction with shelter staff. Then, taking a deep breath, she hit post. The response was immediate and overwhelming. By morning, the post had been shared thousands of times. Local news stations were calling, wanting to feature Patch's story. Donations poured in for his medical care. But among the flood of responses, one email stood out. Kay Ford had spent 20 years as a veterinary physical therapist before retiring to focus on rehabilitating senior and special needs dogs. Her farm outside Richmond had become a sanctuary for animals others had given up on. Her message was simple: "I have the experience, the time, and the love to help Patch become the dog he was meant to be. Please consider me as his adopter." Clara spent hours reviewing applications, but she kept coming back to Kay's. After a home visit that brought tears to her eyes, watching Kay's other rescue dogs roam freely on the fenced property, seeing the indoor therapy pool, meeting the retired veterinarian who made weekly house calls, she knew she'd found Patch's person. The day Kay came to meet Patch, something magical happened. The enormous dog, who had remained relatively subdued with other potential adopters, practically dragged himself across the meet and greet room to place his head in her lap. Kay, with her gray hair tied back in a practical braid and wearing comfortable clothes suited for dog handling, sat on the floor for over an hour, just talking to him. "You've had a rough go of it, haven't you, sweet boy?" she murmured, massaging his ears. "But that's all going to change now. We're going to take this journey together, one day at a time." And so began Patch's transformation. Kay created a Facebook page called Patch's Journey, documenting every step of his recovery. The first weeks were the hardest. Patch, used to being fed whenever he begged, struggled to adjust to scheduled meals of carefully measured portions. He would lie by his empty bowl, looking up at Kay with eyes that nearly broke her resolve. "The hardest part," Kay wrote in one post, "is knowing that he doesn't understand why I'm depriving him. Food was his comfort, his love language. We're having to rebuild his understanding of love from the ground up." She introduced him to water therapy, using the indoor pool to help him exercise without stressing his joints. At first, Patch was terrified of the water, but Kay's patience was boundless. She would sit in the pool with him, offering encouragement and security until he gained confidence. The breakthrough came in his third week at the farm. Kay's other dogs, particularly an elderly black lab named Winston, had been carefully supervised around Patch due to his limited mobility. But that morning, Winston brought his favorite ball to Patch, dropping it at his feet with a friendly woof. For the first time, they saw Patch play. He couldn't move much, but he picked up the ball and initiated a gentle game of tug-of-war. Kay filmed the interaction with trembling hands, tears streaming down her face. The video went viral, touching hearts worldwide. Slowly, the pounds began to melt away. Kay documented every victory. The first time Patch walked a quarter-mile without stopping to rest, the day he managed to climb the porch steps without assistance, The morning he actually ran a few steps in pursuit of a squirrel. Clara visited regularly, amazed by each transformation. But it wasn't just Patch's physical appearance that was changing. The sad, resigned look in his eyes had been replaced by a spark of joy. He held his head higher, wagged his tail more frequently, and showed interest in the world around him. For months into his new life, Kay organized a special celebration. Patch had lost 17 pounds, a safe, gradual weight loss that had his veterinarian beaming with pride. The party was attended by shelter staff, supporters who had followed his journey online, and even a few local news crews. Patch, now able to move with significantly more ease, worked the crowd like a professional socialite. His tail wagged constantly as he accepted gentle pets and praise. Kay had tied a bright blue bandana around his neck, emblazoned with the words, 17 pounds lighter, 100% happier. But the most touching moment came when Patch's former owner's daughter, who had been following his journey on social media with growing remorse, reached out to Kay. After several emotional emails and phone calls, Kay agreed to let her visit. The meeting was captured on video. The young woman, tears streaming down her face, kneeling before a much slimmer, healthier Patch. Everyone held their breath, wondering how he would react to seeing the person who had given him up. Patch, proving the incredible capacity for forgiveness that dogs possess, gently licked her tears away. There wasn't a dry eye on the farm. I was so wrong, the young woman admitted later in an interview. I treated him like he was an inconvenience rather than a family member. Watching his journey with Kay has completely changed my perspective on pet ownership. I'm not ready for another dog yet, but when I am, I'll remember the lessons Patch taught me. Kay's response to this meeting became one of her most shared posts. Patch's story was never about shame or blame. It's about learning, growing, and understanding that it's never too late to change course. Every day, he teaches me something new about resilience, forgiveness, and joy. 1 year after his arrival at Kay's farm, Patch had reached his target weight of 75 pounds. The transformation was remarkable. His golden coat gleamed, his eyes sparkled with energy, and he could run and play with the other dogs for hours. But more than the physical changes, it was his spirit that had undergone the most beautiful transformation. Clara, attending his 1-year celebration, watched him racing across the farm with Winston, his best friend. Sometimes, she said, wiping away tears, the animals we think we're rescuing end up rescuing us instead. Kay nodded, snapping photos of Patch's joyful play. He's touched so many lives, taught so many lessons. And to think, this all started because you took the time to share his story. Patch's Journey Facebook page, now with over 100,000 followers, continues to inspire people worldwide. Kay uses it as a platform to educate about responsible pet ownership, the importance of proper diet and exercise, and the incredible rewards of giving senior and special needs dogs a second chance. The Richmond Animal Care Center saw a significant increase in senior dog adoptions following Patch's story, with many adopters specifically mentioning his journey as their inspiration. They also implemented a program called Patch's Promise, offering support and resources to families struggling with pet obesity. As for Patch himself, he spends his days doing what dogs do best, giving and receiving love. He greets each morning with enthusiasm, enjoys his carefully measured meals without obsession, and never misses his daily walk with Kay and Winston. On warm afternoons, he can often be found lounging on the porch, watching over the farm with contentment in his eyes. Kay still updates his page regularly, sharing moments of everyday joy. Patch helping to welcome new rescue dogs, participating in local pet obesity awareness events, or simply enjoying life on the farm. Each post serves as a reminder that second chances, when given with love and patience, can lead to extraordinary transformations. Every time I look at Patch, Kay wrote in a recent post, I'm reminded that it's never too late for a new beginning. His story isn't just about weight loss. It's about finding purpose, healing hearts, and the incredible journey that can unfold when we open ourselves to love. Clara keeps a before and after photo of Patch on her desk at the shelter. On difficult days, when the challenges of animal welfare feel overwhelming, she looks at those pictures and remembers. One act of kindness, one shared story, one person willing to take a chance. That's all it takes to change a life. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, that changed life goes on to change countless others. The once abandoned golden retriever who could barely walk now runs with the wind in his fur, teaching the world about resilience, forgiveness, and the transformative power of love. His story continues to inspire, reminding us that every ending can be a new beginning, and every heart has the capacity to heal, to forgive, and to love again. As the sun sets over Kay's farm each evening, Patch sits on the porch, Winston by his side, surveying his kingdom with contentment. He is home, he is healthy, and he is loved, proving that sometimes the unthinkable isn't a tragedy waiting to happen, but a miracle about to unfold.